The email notification had arrived at 3:47 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day. Subject: Urgent, unauthorized patent rights transfer detected, federal investigation initiated. I was sitting in my parents' living room in suburban Chicago, surrounded by the usual chaos of family gathering. My older sister Victoria held court on the main sofa, describing her latest real estate commission, something about a lakefront property and a seven-figure sale. My brother-in-law James nodded along, occasionally interjecting with comments about his hedge fund's quarterly returns. My younger brother Kyle was showing off photos from his trip to Monaco, funded by what he called his cryptocurrency investments. Mom and Dad beamed at all three of their successful children. Well, two of their successful children. I was the third one. The quiet one. The one who worked with computers, in some vague capacity they'd never quite understood or bothered to ask about. Sarah's doing that tech support thing, right? Aunt Linda had asked earlier and no one had corrected her. I didn't bother anymore. Let them think I fixed printers for a living. The reality was more complicated. I was a research engineer specializing in renewable energy systems. For the past 6 years I'd been working on advanced solar panel efficiency technologies. Specifically, a novel configuration of photovoltaic cells that increased energy conversion rates by 43% while reducing manufacturing costs by 60%. The patent applications had been filed 2 years ago. The approval had come through 8 months ago. And 3 weeks ago, I'd received confirmation that a major energy consortium was interested in licensing the technology. The preliminary valuation had been staggering: $5 million for the patent rights plus royalties. I hadn't told my family. Why would I? They'd made it abundantly clear over the years that my work was incomprehensible and therefore unimpressive. Victoria sold houses people could see and touch. James managed money people could count. Kyle talked about cryptocurrency a lot, though I suspected his actual understanding was superficial at best. But me? I designed solar panel configurations. I wrote technical papers. I filed patents on electron flow optimization. Boring. Unmarketable. Worthless. That's what Dad had said 3 years ago when I tried to explain my research at Christmas dinner. That's nice, honey, but when are you going to work on something that actually makes money? I'd stopped trying to explain after that. Now, sitting in their living room with my phone in my lap, I read the email carefully. Then I read it again. Ms. Chen, our automated monitoring systems have detected an unauthorized transfer of patent rights for U.S. patent #10.847.392, advanced photovoltaic cell configuration for enhanced energy conversion. The transfer was executed on November 23 and involves sale of rights to Tech Venture Capital LLC for $50,000. This transfer was not authorized by you as the registered patent holder. Federal investigation has been initiated per 35 U.S.C. Section 292. USPTO Office of Enforcement is en route to the address listed on the transfer documents. Please confirm your location and availability for immediate interview. I looked up. Dad was standing near the fireplace, chest puffed out, telling some story to Uncle Bob. Mom was in the kitchen, but I could hear her voice carrying through. $50,000. They'd sold my patent for $50,000. The patent that was worth $5 million. I stood up slowly, phone in hand, and walked toward Dad. Can I talk to you for a moment? He waved me off without looking. In a minute, Sarah. I'm talking to your uncle. It's important. So is this conversation. He turned back to Uncle Bob. Anyway, as I was saying, sometimes you have to make executive decisions for your children. Even adult children. Especially when they don't understand business. Something cold settled in my stomach. What kind of executive decisions? Now he looked at me, his expression that familiar mix of patience and condescension. We were going to tell you after dinner. Sit down, honey. This is good news. Mom emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Oh, are we telling her now? Sarah, sweetie, your father and I did something wonderful for you. Victoria looked over from the sofa, interested. What's going on? Dad gestured for everyone's attention. The room gradually quieted. Kyle put down his phone. James paused mid-sip of his bourbon. Even Aunt Linda stopped scrolling through her iPad. Sarah has been working on some kind of tech thing for years, Dad began. Solar panels or computers or something. Anyway, she filed some patents on it. We found the paperwork in her old room when we were cleaning last month. My old room. where I'd left backup copies of my patent documents in a filing cabinet. Documents that included my patent numbers, my attorney's contact information, my digital signatures on the official USPTO forms. We realized, Mom continued, taking over the narrative, that Sarah doesn't really understand business. She's a sweet girl, very smart with her technical things, but she doesn't know how to monetize her work. So we took the initiative. We found a buyer, Dad announced proudly. Tech venture capital. They were very interested. Offered us $50,000 for the patent rights. The room erupted in congratulations. Victoria clapped. Kyle whistled. Uncle Bob raised his glass. $50,000, James said, nodding approvingly. That's a solid return on what I assume was minimal investment. Good work. I stood perfectly still. You sold my patent. We sold your patent, Dad confirmed, beaming. The money will be in our account by Monday. We'll transfer it to you after taxes, of course. Probably net you around $35,000. That's more money than you've ever had at once, isn't it? When did you do this? Signed the papers yesterday, Mom said. We wanted to surprise you at Thanksgiving. Aren't you excited? I looked down at my phone. At the email from the USPTO Office of Enforcement. At the words Federal Investigation Initiated. How did you sign the papers? I asked quietly. The patent is in my name. I'm the sole inventor. I'm the only one who can legally transfer those rights. Dad waved his hand dismissively. We have power of attorney. From when you were in college, and we handled some banking stuff for you. Still valid. We just used that. That power of attorney was for a specific savings account closure. It was limited in scope and it expired in 2019. Well, it was good enough for tech venture capital, Dad said, his tone turning slightly defensive. They accepted it. Everything's legal. Victoria leaned forward. Sarah, you should be grateful. Dad and Mom did you a huge favor. $50,000 for some solar panel idea? That's incredible. Most inventors never see a dime. They were worthless anyway, Mom added. I mean, solar panels. There are already solar panels everywhere. What's special about yours? I took a slow breath. Then another. Years of meditation practice keeping my voice level. My solar panels increase efficiency by 43% while reducing manufacturing costs by 60%. The technology represents a fundamental breakthrough in renewable energy. Kyle laughed. Sarah, come on. If it was that good, you'd be rich already. I was in negotiations with an energy consortium. The preliminary valuation was $5 million for the licensing rights, plus ongoing royalties estimated at $2 to $3 million annually. The room went silent. Dad's face slowly changed color. $5 million. Plus royalties. The formal offer was supposed to arrive next week. That's impossible, Victoria said flatly. If your patent was worth that much, someone would have told you. Someone did tell me. The consortium's attorneys. 3 weeks ago. I have the emails. Mom's laugh was nervous. Sarah, honey, you must have misunderstood. Patents aren't worth millions of dollars. Not for normal people. Not for normal inventors, I agreed. But for breakthrough renewable energy technology with immediate industrial applications and verified efficiency improvements? Yes, they are. James had his phone out now, apparently searching for something. His face was getting paler by the second. U.S. Patent 10,847,392. Solar panel configuration. Filed by Dr. Sarah Chin. Approved 8 months ago. He looked up at me. Dr. Sarah Chin? I finished my PhD in electrical engineering 4 years ago. I work for the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. I'm a senior research engineer. You told us you did tech support, Aunt Linda said weakly. I never said that. You assumed. I stopped correcting you after a while. Dad sat down heavily. $5 million. Was worth $5 million, I corrected. Past tense. You sold it to tech venture capital for $50,000. Which means they got it for 1% of its value. That's either criminal fraud on their part, or they didn't know what they were buying either, which seems unlikely given that they're a capital investment firm. My phone buzzed. Another email, ETA 12 minutes. Federal agents and USPTO enforcement officers en route. Please remain at location. I held up my phone. The USPTO Office of Enforcement is on their way here. Apparently, when someone tries to transfer a high-value patent using fraudulent authorization, their automated systems flag it immediately. Federal investigators get involved. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Federal investigators? Patent fraud is a federal crime under 35 U.S.C. Section 292. Unauthorized transfer of patent rights is theft of intellectual property. Using fraudulent or expired legal authorization to execute the transfer is fraud. You used an expired power of attorney to sell $5 million worth of intellectual property that belonged to me, to a capital firm that either knew they were buying stolen property or should have known given the absurdly low price. Victoria stood up. This is insane. Sarah, we're your family. We were trying to help you. By stealing my patent and selling it for 1% of its value? We didn't know it was worth that much. Did you ask me? Did you call me, email me, text me? Did you say, "Hey Sarah, we found these patent documents, can we talk about them?" Silence. You didn't ask because you assumed I didn't understand my own work. You assumed that because you couldn't comprehend what I do it must be worthless. So you took it upon yourselves to help me by committing federal crimes. Dad's voice was hoarse. We can fix this. We'll call Tech Venture, cancel the sale. You can't cancel it. The transfer was filed with the USPTO. It's in the federal system now. Tech Venture has the rights. I don't. And the USPTO's enforcement division is already investigating. Kyle was frantically typing on his phone. Holy shit. Sarah Chin, renewable energy patents. There are articles about you. IEEE journals. Conference presentations. You won an award last year for breakthrough research. The Department of Energy Innovation Award, yes. Why didn't you tell us? Mom asked, tears forming. I tried. 6 years ago I explained my research at Christmas. Dad said it sounded boring and would never make money. 3 years ago I mentioned I was filing patents. Victoria said patents were for people with real innovations, not computer stuff. Last year I brought up the Energy Consortium's initial interest. James told me I was probably being scammed because real investors don't contact people at my level. Each statement landed like a physical blow. I watched my family's faces cycle through disbelief, recognition, shame. You all spent years making it clear that my work was worthless because you couldn't understand it. So I stopped sharing. I stopped trying to make you understand. I just kept working, kept researching, kept innovating. And I succeeded. Despite you, not because of you. The doorbell rang. Everyone jumped. I walked calmly to the door and opened it. 4 people stood on the porch. 2 in FBI windbreakers, 2 in suits with USPTO identification badges. Dr. Sarah Chin? The lead FBI agent asked. Yes. I'm Special Agent Martinez, FBI Cyber and Intellectual Property Division. This is Special Agent Wong. These are investigators Harrison and Patel from the USPTO Office of Enforcement. We need to speak with you regarding the unauthorized transfer of U.S. Patent 10,847,392. Of course. Come in. I led them into the living room. My family sat frozen, staring at the federal agents and patent investigators now filling their space. Agent Martinez pulled out a tablet. Dr. Chin, can you confirm that you did not authorize the transfer of your patent rights to Tech Venture Capital LLC? Correct. I did not authorize any transfer. I was in active negotiations with Solaris Energy Consortium for a licensing deal valued at $5 million. I would never have sold the rights, especially not for $50,000. Investigator Harrison consulted her notes. The transfer documents show authorization via power of attorney signed by. She looked around the room. Howard and Margaret Chin. Your parents. Yes. They used an expired limited power of attorney from 2017 that was specifically for closing a single savings account. It expired in 2019 and was never valid for intellectual property transfers. How did they obtain the patent information? They found backup documentation in my childhood bedroom. I left copies there during a move 3 years ago. The documents included my patent numbers and attorney contact information. Agent Wong stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Chin, did you transfer Dr. Chen's patent rights to Tech Venture Capital? Dad found his voice. It came out as a croak. Yes. But we didn't know. Did you use a power of attorney to execute this transfer? Yes, but were you aware that the power of attorney had expired? Silence. Were you aware of the patent's potential value? No, Mom said desperately. We thought it was worth maybe a few $1,000s. We were trying to help. Agent Martinez made a note. According to Tech Venture Capital's filing with the USPTO, they assessed the patent's value at $4.7 million. Their internal documents, which we've subpoenaed, show they knew exactly what they were buying. My stomach dropped. They knew. They knew. They reached out to your parents specifically, likely after seeing the patent approval in public records and tracing it back to your family address in the USPTO database. They offered $50,000 knowing the actual value was nearly $5 million. Investigator Patel pulled out handcuffs. Howard Chin, Margaret Chin, you're under arrest for patent fraud under 35 U.S.C. Section 292, theft of intellectual property under 18 U.S.C. Section 1832, and wire fraud under 18 U.S.C. Section 1343. Mom started crying. Dad stood up, hands shaking. Wait please. We didn't mean to. You used fraudulent authorization to transfer $5 million in intellectual property without the owner's knowledge or consent, Agent Martinez said firmly. That's federal theft and fraud regardless of intent. Victoria jumped up. You can't arrest them. They're her parents. She can just say she approves it now. Investigator Harrison shook her head. It doesn't work that way. The fraud is in the execution, using expired legal authorization to transfer high-value intellectual property. Even if Dr. Chin forgave them personally, the federal crimes still occurred. And Tech Venture Capital's involvement means this is part of a larger investigation into systematic patent fraud schemes. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at it, an email from my attorney. Sarah, just saw a USPTO alert. Solaris Energy confirmed they'll maintain their offer despite transfer complications. Federal court will void the fraudulent transfer. You'll retain all rights. But your family's involved in federal prosecution now. Call me ASAP. I looked up to see agents reading my parents their Miranda rights. Mom was sobbing into Dad's shoulder. Dad looked 10 years older than he had 20 minutes ago. Kyle's voice was small. Sarah, you have to fix this. I turned to my younger brother. Fix what exactly? Tell them it was a mistake. That you gave permission. Something. I didn't give permission. They committed federal crimes. Multiple federal crimes. They're our parents. They're also people who stole $5 million from me and sold it to criminals who were running a patent fraud scheme. Should that be consequence-free because we share DNA? Victoria's voice was sharp. You're going to let them go to prison over this? I'm not sending them to prison. Their choices are sending them to prison. They chose to go through my private documents. They chose to use expired legal authorization. They chose to sell my intellectual property without asking me. They chose to commit federal crimes. James had been quiet, reading something on his phone. Now he spoke. Tech Venture Capital has been under investigation for 6 months. They target inventors with valuable patents, approach their family members with lowball offers, use any legal gray areas to execute transfers, then resell the patents at market value. They've done this 17 times. The FBI's been building a RICO case. Agent Martinez nodded. Your family walked into an ongoing federal investigation. Tech Venture specifically targeted Dr. Chen's patent because of its high value and because her family address was in the public records. They counted on family members not understanding the patent's worth and not consulting the actual inventor. But we didn't know that, Dad protested weakly as Agent Wong handcuffed him. You didn't ask, I said quietly. You saw complex technical work you didn't understand, assumed it was worthless and sold it without ever talking to me. That's not bad luck. That's negligence. Criminal negligence. Mom was being handcuffed now too. She looked at me, mascara running down her face. Sarah, please. Baby, please don't let them do this. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something crack inside me. This was my mother. My father. The people who'd raised me, paid for my education, loved me in their own limited way. Then I remembered. Remembered 6 years of dismissal. Of condescension. Of having my life's work reduced to that computer thing. Of watching them celebrate Victoria's real estate deals and James's hedge fund and Kyle's cryptocurrency speculation while treating my breakthrough research like a hobby. Remembered Dad saying my work would never make money. Victoria saying real innovation didn't look like what I was doing. Mom asking when I'd get a normal job that people could understand. Remembered being invisible at every family gathering. The forgotten daughter. The one doing something too complicated to matter. And now they wanted forgiveness. Now they wanted me to save them from the consequences of stealing $5 million from me. Agent Martinez, I said clearly, I want to press full charges. I want to cooperate completely with the investigation. And I want to sue for damages, both from my parents and from tech venture capital. Mom's sob turned into a wail. Dad's face crumpled. Victoria stood up furious. You vindictive bitch. They're your parents. And I'm their daughter. The one they stole from. The one whose 6 years of research they sold for pennies without asking. The one they assumed was too stupid to understand her own work. Agent Wong spoke into his radio. Transport ready for 2 suspects. Also need forensic accounting at this address. Seize all financial records, computers, phones, documents related to tech venture capital. More agents came through the door, carrying evidence bags and equipment. They started photographing the living room, collecting documents, seizing laptops and phones. Uncle Bob stood up hesitantly. Sir, they made a mistake. People make mistakes. Mistakes are accidental. This was deliberate. They deliberately went through my documents. Deliberately contacted a buyer. Deliberately signed transfer papers. Deliberately deposited $50,000. The only thing accidental was getting caught. Cal tried one more time. What about Thanksgiving? What about family? I looked around the room. At the expensive furniture bought with Victoria's real estate commissions. At James's Rolex. At Kyle's designer clothes from his cryptocurrency investments. At my parents being led toward the door in handcuffs. What about 6 years of being invisible? I asked quietly. What about every time my work was dismissed as worthless? What about every achievement that was ignored because it wasn't something you could brag about at cocktail parties? No one answered. Family, I continued, is supposed to work both ways. You're supposed to care about what I do even when you don't understand it. You're supposed to ask before you sell my life's work. You're supposed to treat me like an adult who might actually know what she's doing. Agent Martinez handed me a card. Dr. Chen will need you to come to the federal building tomorrow to give a complete statement. Bring all documentation related to the patent, your research, and the Solaris energy negotiations. Of course. For what it's worth, she added quietly, your patent will be returned to you. The fraudulent transfer will be voided. Solaris Energy has confirmed they'll honor their original offer. You'll be fine. Thank you. She glanced at my parents, now being walked to separate FBI vehicles. Family situations like this are always complicated. But $5 million is $5 million. And fraud is fraud. After they left, the house was silent except for Aunt Linda's quiet crying and the sound of evidence collection in the next room. I picked up my coat. Where are you going? Victoria demanded. Back to my apartment. I have work tomorrow. A conference call with Solaris Energy's attorneys. Then the FBI interview. Then I need to review the technical documentation for the patent restoration process. You're just leaving? What would you like me to do? Make turkey? Pretend this didn't happen? Bail out the parents who stole $5 million from me. Kyle's voice was bitter. You've changed, Sarah. You used to be nice. I looked at him, my little brother who'd never once asked about my research, who'd spent years describing me to friends as the boring one, who'd laughed along with everyone else at my worthless computer work. I haven't changed, I said. I just stopped pretending your opinion of me mattered more than reality. I walked out into the cold November evening. My phone was already ringing. My attorney probably, or the USPTO or Solaris Energy. I had a dozen calls to make, 100 documents to organize, a federal case to prepare for. Behind me, through the window, I could see my family standing frozen in their expensive living room, surrounded by FBI evidence bags and the wreckage of their assumptions. They'd thought I was worthless because they couldn't understand my worth. They'd thought they could help me because I clearly couldn't help myself. They'd thought $50,000 was an impressive return on Sarah's little invention ideas. They'd been wrong about all of it. And now they'd spend the next several years learning exactly how wrong, probably from inside a federal prison. I got in my car and drove away. I had a $5 million patent to reclaim, an energy consortium to negotiate with, and a career in breakthrough renewable technology to continue building. With or without my family's understanding. With or without their approval. I'd been succeeding on my own for 6 years. I'd just keep doing what I'd always done. The work they couldn't see, creating value they couldn't comprehend, building a future they'd never believed possible. The only difference now was that the federal court system had documented proof of exactly how valuable my worthless work actually was. And my family had receipts for their $50,000 fraud conviction. Thanksgiving dinner was ruined. But my patent and my future had never been more secure.